What's up, guys? I'm Kirrana, and this clip is from Difficult Content, an interview podcast about Final Fantasy XIV. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and click the link at the end for the full interview. As I said in the intro, you have a tremendous collection of prog accomplishments in the past two expansions, 2 Ultimate Top 10 finishes, and a host of Savage Top 15s. What do you attribute to your success as a prog player, both individually and as a member of your statics?
The attitude that I have to raiding, and the attitude that the rest of my group has to raiding as well, is that we always think of ourselves as not good enough. We always think of ourselves as being in a position where we need to improve. I always go into a raid tier with the attitude of I want to learn, and I want to learn from the other people in my group, and I want to try and get to a point where we perform well enough. And I think that the most important thing that enables me to do that is that I'm quite blessed in that I've surrounded myself with people that bring out the best in me. And I think it's also very important that when you are making a group or when you are joining a group, especially to do hardcore prog, because that's a lot of hours to contribute to a video game, you need to make sure that you're around 7 people that bring out the best in you, but also you have to accept that there is going to be a worst part of you as well. And it's the job of the other 7 people in the group to make up for the worst part of you, both in terms of gameplay and in terms of you as a person. For example, let's say there's a guy who joins a group and he's a really good player, he's a really good shot caller, but if he wipes the raid, he gets tilted and he griefs for a bit. In hardcore prog, you love that guy when he's not wiping, but when he tilts because he messed up a mechanic, it's the job of the rest of the group to figure out how to untilt him. And then you get him back at peak performance. The moment you said, what do you attribute to your success as a prog player? I think it's not really about a prog player. I think of it as a group, right? You have 8 people and the performance lives or dies based on the performance of all 8 people. And not everybody is always going to be at their peak. Not everybody is always going to be at their best. Probably one of the hardest things in a group is trying to figure out how each person ticks and how to get the best out of them. I suppose, honestly, as well, I just play the game a lot. I don't consider myself the best player in the world or even the best player in any job that I play, but I play a lot, and all of the time that I'm playing, I'm thinking about what I can do to improve. If I make a mistake, I don't think, okay, next time I need to dodge that AoE. I think, why did I mess that up? Was my thought process wrong? Was I slow? What was it? Because maybe there is a way that you can change the way that you're thinking about a certain thing to make sure that you're more efficient the next time. I'm always trying to, whenever I play, trying to think about how I can improve for the next time so that I can contribute as much as possible to my group for the next prog.
Sticking with this, in your mind, what separates a raider, and even a good one, from a world progger or hardcore progger? If someone's trying to make the jump from, say, week 1 clear to hardcore raider or hardcore hours to legitimate world racer, what are the factors or skills or mentalities that someone can work on to make that jump?
Final Fantasy XIV is not a game that has a high level of inherent talent required to be good at it. There are still some people that are inherently talented and are just very good at the game, but it's definitely not a requirement to be a hardcore raider or even a world prog raider. Learning your job, learning your role, learning the way the game works, gaining past experience, all of that stuff is a requirement to be a decent player. All of that experience is a requirement to be a good player. But what makes you a special player that people remember isn't that you can do damage. It's not that you can do the mechanics or clear the fight or get a 99th percentile on FFLogs.com. It's the intangibles that you bring to the raid. When you finish progging with a group, they won't remember that, oh, that guy did a lot of damage. They'll remember when the group had a problem, this guy fixed the problem and got us through. Being good at damage or being good at healing isn't good enough. You need to bring more to the table. Are you good at callouts? Are you good at strat formulation? Are you good at keeping the group morale high after a 16-hour raid? Are you good at dealing with disagreements within the group? A successful group of 8 people all need to work together. And as a good example, sometimes you're going to be the fastest on a mechanic. Let's say you get to Death of the Heavens for the first time. You have no idea how to deal with it, and it just clicks for you. And there's 7 guys around you running around like headless ducks, no idea what they're doing. There's 2 ways you can deal with this, right? You can either go, idiots, and just mute yourself and wait for them to get it. Or you can be the guy that figures out how to help them click with it in a positive way. And I think that players who get into a scenario where they need to do something like that, they need to help the other members of the group with something, be it a mechanic or a disagreement or anything like that, the players that go the extra mile on the intangibles are the players that people remember. They're the kind of players that everyone wants to have in their group. The kind of guys who are selfless, right? Some sometimes you're also going to be the worst at a mechanic, right? Everyone has been in a scenario where you're the only guy who doesn't get it. And it's the easiest thing in the world to get really angry about that. It's actually a skill to understand how to accept help without having an ego about it, and to provide the other players in the group with the information they need on what you don't understand and how you can learn it the best. Because I guarantee you, even the world first groups, whenever they get to a mechanic, there's some guy who doesn't get it as quick as the others. And the onus is on them to help him get it. It's not just wait for the idiot to learn. It's how do we get the group through this mechanic effectively? If you want to make a hardcore group, if you want to join a hardcore group, or even if you want to go for world first, you have to think of it as a team and think, how can we most efficiently get through X, Y, or Z as a team? And what do these people bring to the table that will make the best team, not who can press buttons the best?
Do you and your teammates look back on your accomplishments from the past handful of progs to try and take stock of what you've achieved to date? Or do you guys have more of an on to the next one mentality?
After progression, the group that I'm in right now, which is the group I was in for most of my progs, but not all of them, we always have a group meeting about 2 to 3 weeks after prog ends. This is going to sound really toxic, okay? But I promise you it's not toxic. We're all in a Discord call, the players, the ninth man, everyone. And we go through the list of players and we review them. Everybody makes it a goal to say one nice thing about everyone else in the group and one thing that they think they can work on for next prog. So essentially what happens is everyone says something they appreciated about another person, and they also say something that, okay, you could kind of do that better, or that was a rough point for you, right? And then afterwards we do the same thing, but as a group on the whole. I think it's actually really valuable because everyone on the group respects each other. We're all friends. We're not going to get angry when somebody says, you weren't very good at that, right? Nobody's going to get super angry about that. They'll just be like, yeah, I wasn't very good at that. I'll do that better next time. Being able to speak candidly with each other is really important in terms of improving yourself as players and improving yourself as a group. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I actually watched a video by Zeno really recently, and he was talking about the exact same thing. He was talking about how he had an argument with everybody in his group before prog. And if you don't know that you can have an argument with people in your group and reach a conclusion without people's egos getting in the way, then there is a solid chance your group is going to have a very, very bad time in prog because people don't know each other enough to be able to disagree and find the right response from it. That's really important, being able to speak candidly with everyone in your group. Our post-prog reviews are really important because it gives everybody something to work on, and it also gives everyone something to feel proud of. My personal feedback for top, at least from what I remember, the good feedback that I got was that we almost never died to damage, so that's good. The healers can press buttons, hell yeah. And also that I'm good at keeping the team atmosphere fun and positive. And then the main improvement point that I took to work on for next prog was that when we get to these big headline mechanics like Delta Trio, where there are tons of moving parts, it's a very complex mechanic, I'm very good at iterating on an existing strat that we've built and figuring out a way to make it easier or improve it, but I'm not very good at formulating the initial strat. So I normally just sit there for 10 minutes and let 3 or 4 other people in the group formulate a strat, and then I look at it and go, why don't we change that? Or why don't we change that? And I think that instead of taking such a backseat and not really participating in the initial construction of strats, I want to be more helpful next time in terms of really trying to rack my brain and coming up with something initially that could be useful so that we have more people trying to contribute to that, right? Everyone in the group got something like that basically from the other members. And I think it not only helps us improve as players, but it also helps us improve a bit of a bond between us.
That's a fantastic idea. I think I'm going to steal that from my static.
We only started doing it this expansion. Beforehand, we would usually just go, well, that was a fun prog, on to the next one. But we started doing this after, I think it was Asphodolos we started doing this. And it was really, really useful. People really liked it. We do it every single progression. It's also a good opportunity for us to big up our ninth men, because I feel like the ninth men in any kind of hardcore raid group don't get the appreciation they deserve. It's a 2-hour meeting where we get to go and say, wow, you guys were so good. Thank you so much. And they actually get to feel properly appreciated, you know. This group has been together a long time. One of our current ninth man is the old static leader. He didn't have the real lifetime available anymore to keep raiding in like a hardcore capacity. So he was like, I'll be a ninth man for you guys. And it was really helpful. And then our other ninth man is the brother of one of our members. And he's also a decent player. He can't really put the timing to raid hardcore himself. And those people are like literally essential to our ability to clear fights. When we got to phase 6, the 8 people playing, we didn't think, we didn't do anything other than what we were told. Our ninth man told us everything to do. There's clear POVs out there of our clear, and it was our ninth man doing all of the callouts for us. I think in general, ninth men deserve a lot more praise than they get in any group that has a ninth man. They are literally just members of the group, and a lot of people are like, oh, the 8 members of the group. At least in my case, our group has 10 members because we have 2 ninth men, and that's just how it is.
That's great to hear. Hardcore prog groups famously do some pretty wild things in order to prep for prog, since solved fights in Final Fantasy that you've done 100 times, especially with gear creep, rarely present enough of a challenge for prep. What kind of prep did your team do for Omega, and which challenges do you feel actually helped you guys the most?
We did 2 things to prepare for Omega. First of all, we did a DSR clear every week until basically Omega came out. I would say that that was elite prep, but it wasn't really. We just wanted to get all of our DSR weapons. But it definitely kept everyone in shape of dealing with ultimate tier mechanics every single week. Because I think a lot of the time, what a lot of people do is they clear the fight, they'll do like 3 or 4 reclears, they don't go back in, they don't bother. And then you get back to Ultimate and you're like, wow, this is pretty quick compared to Savage, damn, because you haven't been in for 2 or 3 months. So we made sure to constantly be in DSR almost up until Omega came out. But the other thing we did is there is a spreadsheet that shows you the minimum gear that you can wear that will allow you to do the sync to Mega raids and get the quote unquote authentic minimum item level experience. I would argue it's probably harder than the actual authentic minimum item level experience. Either that or I was a better player in Stormblood than I am now, because the healing is harder than it was back then for sure. We did all of those encounters using that gear, and it was not only really fun because one of our players was not playing the game back in Stormblood, so the fights were all new to them. It was really fun to see their reactions and how they learnt the mechanics and how they understood the mechanics, but it was also really useful to do a piece of hard content that required you to heal a lot because your gear was so low that it was harder to heal than the actual game should be. On the whole though, I don't think we prepare too much for progression, at least compared to other groups. At our core, we're kind of a group of friends nowadays. So we have a couple of people that very actively play the game. We have a couple of people that just raid log. Usually we trust people just to do their own due diligence and just aim to get everyone together once or twice a week to make sure they're playing the game. And then maybe 2 weeks or so before prog, we'll do maybe 3 or 4 days or something like that. I don't think that we did too much practice though, aside from the Omega gear synced stuff. And that was just really fun on the whole.
Hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button below and click this link right here for the full interview.